This is Balloon Car Tutorial 2 and we're going to do the basic chassis model. So the basic chassis model will show you the basic ideas that we're going to do or use to create our balloon car, and we're just going to create a horrible looking rectangular balloon car with everything you need for your balloon car to work. It just doesn't look great. And it might drive a bit like a brick, I think. So this is what we're going to have set up, and we're going to work through this step by step. So step one will be to draw the outline of the chassis in Fusion 360. Before we start in Fusion 360, it's always a good idea to save our design. So I'm just going to click on Save. I've got a folder called Systems Engineering, or project called Systems Engineering. I'm going to call this Basic Balloon Car Shoot V1. And I'm going to hit Save. So there it is. It's now called Basic Balloon Car Shoot V1. And I'm going to start by drawing out my sketch. So I'm going to create a sketch here, and I'm going to draw my first sketch on probably the right panel. So there we have it on the right panel, and I'm going to draw out my rectangle just like that. So it doesn't really matter about the size, but keep it either side of this. And now I'm going to do some sketch dimensions. It's going to be, as the rules say, 120 millimeters. And it's going to be, as the rules say, 40 millimeters. Now I want it to be perfectly in the middle. This just makes things easier if you put things perfectly in the middle. So in order to do that, I'm going to draw a line, and then I'm going to go over here to line type and choose construction, which is this little angled thing here. And now I'm going to draw a dotted line. The easiest way to get something directly in the middle is to find the midpoint of this line, and that's the midpoint there where that triangle appears. I'm going to click on that side, I'm going to let go, I'm going to move my mouse across to here, and I'm going to find the same triangle on the other side, and click on that, and that's drawn a dotted line or a construction line right through the middle. I'm now going to use the midpoint constraint tool to click on the middle of this line and the middle point here, and that's going to lock it nicely to the middle, and I'm going to say finish sketch. Now I want to extrude this so that the midpoint of this whole screen is in the middle point of the car, so I'm going to use the extrude tool to extrude it, but I'm going to go to symmetrical, so it's going to pull out both sides equally, and I only need to pull out half the distance because it's going to pull out both sides equally, so I'm going to pull out to 20, and that's going to create my 40 mil box. So there you have it. I've created the outline structure of my balloon car. Step 2 will be to cut the axle holes through at the right height for the wheels that we're using into the rectangular prism that we've created. In order to put my axles in place, I'm going to draw a sketch on the side of my box. So it's in home view, so I'm going to press home view just to make it right, and I'm going to create a sketch on this side of the box. I'm not going to press any of those things there, or this side or this side. I'm going to press this side here. I'm going to just move it across this way so I can see it, and I'm going to draw just a couple of circles, one there and one there. They're not lined up or anything like that. I'm going to line them up now by using dimensions and that sort of thing. First dimension I'm going to set is this one here, and that is going to be 8 millimeters. I'm going to use the equals rule here. There's a rule I can set, or a constraint I can set on this one to this one. So these two are going to be equal to each other. I'm also going to use the horizontal vertical tool and click on the midpoint of this one, and then click on the midpoint of this one, and they're going to align themselves equally so that they're going to be in a horizontal line. If they were too close to each other, they might line up the other way, so you need to make sure they're not too close to each other in that regard. I'm now going to use the dimension tool, and I'm going to set the dimension of this one from here to here, and I'm going to make that, I'll make it 6 millimeters, so it's pretty close to the ground, so it gives me a lot more clearance. And from this point here, so from this line here, I'm going to click on this line here, I'm going to click on the midpoint here. I'm not clicking and dragging, I'm clicking and clicking, and I'm going to set that to be 15 millimeters, so that the wheel's pretty well forward, And I'll do the same from the back one here. So click on this one here to this one here, and this will be 15 millimeters. And because I applied those rules, that's all done. So now I'm going to finish that sketch. I'm going to use the extrude button on this one and this one, and I'm just going to grab that handle there, the arrow, the blue arrow. I'm going to drag it all the way back through. It's going to cut through, and then I'm going to press on OK. And now I have axles that go right through my balloon car. In step 3, we're going to draw and construct the pipe that goes through the rectangular prism in order to allow the air to pass through from the balloon and push out the rear of the vehicle. Now, because I've lined this up perfectly on the middle, when I create a sketch, these little panels appear and they are perfectly in the middle of what I'm doing. If I go up to this body section here, there's a small arrow here. I can click on that small arrow. I can turn that body off, and I can then select this one here, and I know, not this one here, not this one here, that one there, and I know now that I'm in the middle. If I turn my body back on, I can see that I'm in the middle of my balloon car. So I am going to be drawing the pipe line, the line for my pipe to follow, on the middle of my balloon car. I'm not going to worry about my parameters. Well, for this one, you need to worry about your parameters, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm just going to draw a basic line that's going to go down through and out here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to draw it from above this point here and down, and I'm going to press on the tick button. So that's the line, that's the first part of the line. I'm going to draw the line from this part here, roughly from the middle, in straight, so that I've got the straight edge there. I'm going to probably draw it in about this far, like so. I'm then going to lock it to the middle of this object, because I want this to be in the middle of this flat area, and I want this to be in the middle of this flat area. That's what I want for mine today. So before I can do that, I'm going to go create, project, and choose project. I could also press the P button, which is what I normally do. So press and I'm going to project the entire shape here onto the sketch. I'm going to go OK over here on this panel over here, and that will give me these lines to work with. So I'm going to then lock this midpoint here, this line here, to the midpoint of this one here. So now it's locked to the midpoint. I'm going to do the same with this one here to this one here, and it's now locked to the midpoint. The final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go create, I'm going to choose arc, and I'm going to choose 3-point arc. I'm going to lock one end of the arc to the end of that little line there, and I'm going to lock the second part of my arc to this one here, and then I'm going to click around about here. I'll move it to there so that it's a bit bulged up. And then I'm going to use this one here, the tangent tool, to click on the arc, and then click on this line, and then I'm going to click on making sure the tangent tool is still attached. I'm going to click on this one and that one, so that's going to line up there. And I should be happy with that. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to change this dimension here, and I'm going to make it 10 so that I've got a bit more of a sweep. Actually, let's make it 8 so we've got even more of a sweep. I don't want to make it too much shorter than 8 though, because I've got to be able to put a screw thread in there. So that's going to be the path that my pipe takes. So now I'm going to go finish sketch. I've now got this path that the pipe's going to take. I can't quite see it because the body's in the way, so I'm going to turn this off. And I've got this one here. So let's actually create a pipe. Believe it or not, that's actually a command. The path I'm going to select is this one here. So that one selects that through. That path is too big, so my size selection for my path is going to be 5 millimeters. I found that to be a pretty good size. And I'm going to press on OK. Now I've got my pipe going through, and I've got my car body going like that. I'm now going to subtract the pipe away from the car body using the combine tool. I'm going to click on the target body first, which is the car, and then I'm going to click on the pipe a second, which is that one there, and I'm going to choose the cut method or operation, and I'm going to click on OK. So that has now created a path or a pipeway that goes all the way through. In step 4, we're going to model the spigot hole. The spigot is the attachment which will allow the balloon to be attached to the car and not fall off and be able to blow through. We're now going to create a spigot hole, and the spigot hole is the hole that goes up the top here. We make this a little bit wider at this point in order to set it so that the balloon spigot can actually sit or screw in there. So we're going to eventually put a thread in there. We'll create a sketch on top of here, and our spigot hole is going to go perfectly on here. It's just going to be a circle, and it's going to be 12 millimeters. So I'm finishing my sketch. That's all I need to do in terms of sketching, but what I do need to do is extrude it, and I need to extrude it down so that it subtracts away, and I need to line it up with that curve. The easy way to do this is now to go to the right side, and you can see that I'm lining it up with that curve. I've gone down 5 millimeters. I could just remember that it's 8, but it could be different. So let's actually look at how we can do this. I'm going to go down to display settings and change the visual style to wireframe. I can now see the inside of my particular model. So I'm going to pull it down now until it's where that line is. It doesn't really matter if I go a little bit above the line. So if I was to go 7.5 millimeters, that wouldn't matter too much, but I'm going to go the full 8. As long as you've got about 5 millimeters in here for the thread to cut into, then that will be fine. So I've got the cut operation happening. I'm going to press on OK. And if we look at that from a wireframe point of view, we'll see that we've got the tube going through, we've got the axles going through. I can change my view back now, going visual style, and I'm just going to go shaded with visible edges only. Some people like to be able to see the hidden edges, but I don't like that. It just annoys me. So I'm going to go back to visible edges only. If you just go shaded, it sort of looks a bit sort of not quite right. It's not quite defined. So I always like to have shaded with edges. The next step is a style thing. And we're going to hollow out our balloon car so that we can see the pipe and see the axles and see all the inner workings. And it sort of looks cool as well. It just sort of adds to the effect of this style of balloon car. Hollowing it out is fairly straightforward. We're going to use the shell command, and I'm going to click on the side view where the 2 axle holes go through, and I'm going to put in, let's just go 2 millimeters and see how that looks. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Hasn't shelled all the way through. We can fix that in a sec, but we've shelled it through enough, so I'm going to go OK on that one. Maybe 2.5 millimeters, depending on the printer. We can play around with it, but 2 millimeters seems good to me at the moment, so I'm going to go OK on that. I'm now going to use the extrude tool and on the back wall of that and just push it back out a bit further, and that's got it all the way through now. So now that is actually fully hollowed out. So that's basically the balloon car. We've got a few more things we can fix, but that's how we hollow it out. Now that we've hollowed it out, we should be able to add our spigot thread. We couldn't do that before because if we hollowed it out, it would make a funny pattern for the spigot thread. It just didn't work to hollow it out before we did the thread. So we'll do the spigot thread now, and that will enable us to put this spigot into the top of the car. Okay, it's now time to put our spigot thread in. So I'm going to make it so I can see down that hole where I'm going to go to the thread. I'm going to go create and choose thread. I'm going to click on the inside wall of that. I'm going to go over here and press modeled, and then I'm going to press OK, and that is the spigot thread all done and dusted, and that's all we need to do. That was a really short one. Now we've got a few final things that we're going to need to do before we 3D print this model. If we don't do this, the model won't work properly because it's got things in mid-air and you can't print things in midair, especially bridges that go around corners like the pipe. So the pipe would fail and would leak air. So we need to actually do some things to that in order to make it 3D printable. Okay, when it prints, it's going to print that way, which means let's just have a look at it from a slight angle. It's pretty tricky from this angle, but you can see that it's going to print side down. But when it gets through to here, it's probably easier if we just go to Visual Style and go Wireframe. So when it gets to this point here and tries to print this section here and that section there, that's going to be printing in midair, and the filament's going to fall out of the printer head, and it's not going to be able to sit on anything, so it's going to start falling before it cures. It'll become all stringy and that sort of thing, and you'll get air holes through the tube. So we don't want that, so we've got to do a few things in order to fix it. So let's just go back to our Visual Style and go with Visible Edges and click on the Home button. First thing we're going to have a look at is up underneath here. That is easy to fix by just doing a fillet, and I think it just looks better to do a fillet anyway. So we've got this nice curve thing here, and it can sort of cope with printing that curve, whereas it probably couldn't do the other thing. So that's what we're going to do for that one. Now what we're going to do, if we look at the right view, is we're going to draw a sketch. We're going to draw a sketch on this surface here. And the sketch is going to be a circle, a small circle, and we'll draw it over here, and we'll make it a radius of 3 millimeters. We're also going to line it up on the line. I'm drawing the line there. It's going to be a solid line. I want to change my mind, go construction line, so it's going to be chopped. I'm going to go to the midpoint there, and then I'm going to use the horizontal vertical tool just to lock it to the midpoint there. And while I'm there, I may as well make it so that this is exactly 3 millimeters from there. I don't want it touching this wall, but I want it there. Okay, so now I'm going to finish this sketch, and you can see that that sketch is there. It's hanging out in the middle of the air, and I'm going to create an extrude of that one there, and I'm going to go from distance to object. I'll look up inside here, and I'm going to click on the pipe, and it's going to draw a little cylinder up here, and I'm going to create that into a new body. So that cylinder is a separate item. So if I turn it off, it's not there, and if I turn it back on again, it is there. While we're here, I'm going to call this the chassis. Okay, and this can be the print support. So now that I've created a print support, so that will stop it from bridging. It'll create a little bridge, but it won't be a big bridge, and that, because it's weak, will just break off. That's the theory anyway. But we need a whole heap of those around in the same shape as our tube. And it so happens that we have a sketch here, which was just before the pipe, this sketch here. So if we look at this sketch here, it's sketch 3. So I've highlighted it, sketch 3. So let's actually right click on that and call it the pipe sketch. Now in the pipe sketch, if we turn that back on and we turn our chassis off, we now have a line that from the right that this can actually guide on. So if we go create, pattern, pattern on path, the object that we're going to duplicate along the path is this one here. The path we're going to select is that line there, and we're going to drag it all the way around to a certain point. We need to turn now our body back on so we can see it, our chassis back on. We don't want to go into this section here. We just want to go to there. Now we have 3 of these. Let's actually increase the number. That should be heaps. And we'll press change this to path direction, and then we'll press OK. So now that we've got that, we've got all these print supports, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 9 of them total. And if we look at that, when it prints now, it'll print little circles, and it'll print little tubes all the way up, and that will then hold that up while it's printing. And then when you take it off the printer, half of them will break, and the rest will break as you just run your fingers along. It's going to be very weak. So that's what we're going to do in order to fix that problem of having that support down. And that's all we need for our car model. What I will really quickly do as well is we're going to go press the A key for appearance. So A, and the appearance panel will appear I'm just going to change mine. I like to use just a color like plastic, and I like my opaque plastic. So scrolling down here, opaque plastic, and I'm a big fan of glossy plastics, so I'm going to go glossy red just on that one there. And I'm also going to turn off, because they annoy me, my print supports. I'll turn them back on later when I need them. But there you go. There is my nice, shiny, red, but terrible looking balloon car.